Hey guys, Teresa here. Welcome back to my channel, Lost My Thread. I feel like my mending pile has gotten a little bit out of control and I need to do something about it. So I'm taking the opportunity to work through some little small things I need to do to get these garments wearable again. I always love when I see other sewing YouTubers sharing repairs, alterations, mending jobs, particularly on me-made things. I know that when I make something, would like to be wearing it for years to come, and I've been stacking up some projects. If I noticed that I was wearing something and needed a little bit of something done to it, I then would hang it up and put it to the side because a stitch in time saves 9. I don't want things to get in a worse condition. But I've got to a point where I have too many things now that I am missing having and I need back in my wardrobe. Most of these will be really quick fixes, and I thought it would be fun to just share with you guys what I'm mending as I go. I've got myself some tea and biscuits to keep me going. I've got a cup of Earl Grey tea and lemon puff biscuits. These are an Irish biscuit that I feel like they're not sold everywhere in the UK, but when I see them, I'm always excited and I make a mental note. They're like a lemon cream filled biscuit. They're not too sweet. They're just kind of a nice balance for me, and I think they go well with the Earl Grey. I just mentioned this because I feel like this is definitely the kind of thing I need to keep me going when I'm doing these types of jobs. The reason it stacks up is because it's not my favorite kind of sewing. My favorite kind of sewing is sewing something from a flat piece of fabric into a garment. That's exciting, that's really fun. The repair jobs feel just like a job, but I feel like if I can share with you guys the things that I'm doing and how surprisingly quick they often are, it might inspire some of you to do the same. I've been separating projects out, and I picked out 2 that are both red, so they're going to have the same color thread, so I feel like I can work on them at the same time. This is a jumpsuit, the Zadie jumpsuit, made in a really wonderful cotton double gauze fabric. This fabric is so glorious. I really do love this jumpsuit. However, there is a hole in the bum, which nobody needs. So that's a really easy thing to do. So I just need to restitch over that area that has come apart. But I will do a little bit of reinforcing because clearly that is an area that's going to get a bit of strain and wear when I'm bending over and moving around. So we'll reinforce that one. These are my Jude jeans by Closet Core. One of the patch pockets on the front has started to come off, so it's like peeling back. It doesn't look like it. You can still see the rows of stitches, but clearly they are no longer attached. So I am just going to restitch those. It's a double layer, so it's surprising that they've both come off, but the other sides on like both of the pockets are completely fine. It's just that one for whatever reason. So I can even see I did a back stitch, but I'm just gonna reinforce that bit. Again, that should be a pretty quick fix. Right, so that is now done. I've restitched and just done another line of stitching just inside the stitching line to reinforce it and make it a little bit stronger. I decided to time it to see how long that repair actually took, and it was 3 minutes, including rethreading the sewing machine. So 3 minutes and this jumpsuit is now totally wearable and back in my wardrobe. Machine is already now threaded and ready to go to mend this pocket. One and a half minutes. I have restitched this down. It's not the exact same color. It's definitely a little bit more of a red thread, but it is very nice and secure now. That's not going anywhere. I actually did like a back stitch and then stitched down again because I definitely don't want it to be going anywhere. I think I spent more time trying to get everything lined up correctly, but I tend to use the same marking points on my sewing machine foot to get my things matched up. I had to change feet and I still only took a minute and a half. And we are good as new. I honestly love these jeans so much. I wear them all the time. So I'm not surprised that they did get a little bit worn, but I'm happy that they're back in my wardrobe. All right, next up is this dress. This is the Jennifer Lauren handmade Isla Wrap Dress. And the way the wrap goes, so this is a dress that's a bit unusual. It wraps in the back. So the front doesn't look like a wrap dress, it wraps in the back. And there's a button at the top that secures it in place, as well as the tie that goes around, so it sort of crosses over at the back. Now, I don't fully understand how I made this mistake. Either I put the hole on the wrong side of the wrap, definitely a possibility, or I put the buttonhole on the wrong side at the top. But as it happens, I noticed when I was putting this on in the fall, so this is how long I've been hanging on to all my mending jobs, it doesn't correlate. So it wraps over this way, which means the button should be on the opposite side. So I have this weird little like gathering up that's never gonna sit flat. So the only solution I have, because I've already made this buttonhole, I'm not gonna undo that buttonhole, is I'm going to put it to the inside, so that way it's going to be an invisible button on the inside. So you won't see it when I'm wearing the garment, but it will keep everything nice and closed and it will sit flat. So I just need to take this button off and then flip it around to the inside of the garment. We'll see how long that takes. That one took longer. It took a full 4 minutes and 50 seconds, so nearly 5 minutes. I do think I spent at least a good minute looking for my seam ripper because I couldn't find the seam ripper. But here we go. So this is now sitting beautifully flat, just like it should do. I don't think it's completely invisible. You can see there's like a bit of a mark there where the button was before, but I think that's super minimal and definitely feeling much happier with this dress. Much more likely to wear it now when the spring comes. So that's a very good win. I feel like the more I'm doing these, honestly, I've done 3 now, my stack is looking a lot smaller and I'm feeling a lot more excited to keep going. Next up are a couple of jobs for the serger. I'm gonna need to change my serger thread, which is fine. I will say I have both navy blue and black serger thread, and I am repairing something that's navy blue and something that's black. Am I gonna change from navy blue to black serger thread? No, I am not. I'm gonna go for black because I don't mind if there's black on the inside of my navy shirt. It's not gonna show through and be visible, but I feel like the black, particularly where I'm putting it, might be a little bit more obvious. So we're gonna go for black serger thread and see how we go. The top, I think I'll do first because it's a little bit simpler. This has a cuff. So this is the Cashmerette Concord Tee, but I did a long sleeve hack. So there's a cuff here and there's a tiny hole. So small I could honestly barely even find it. So it's where the sleeve attaches to the cuff. It's come apart. There, you can see my finger poking through. It's actually done it on both sides. So I think what I did when I was making this, I serged the sleeves together first, but I didn't do anything with the end. I'm pretty bad with that. When I have my threads, like the tails of my serger, I usually just trim them down. And I think I thought it would get caught in the seam that's going around the band here and that would keep it secure. Clearly that has not happened. I could theoretically try and just repair this on the sewing machine, but I feel like I want to just, I'm going to undo the serge line on the cuff on both of the sleeves and just redo and properly tack down the tail of that. And then that one will be good to go. I think part of what's made this one a little bit more awkward is that this is a bamboo jersey, but for a bamboo jersey, it doesn't stretch that great. Like it has a bit of stretch to it, but it's not amazing. And when I try, especially when it's folded over on the cuff, when I try to pull it up, it's quite tight. It pulls quite tight. And so I do think it actually pulls that area more than normally you would expect. So I think that's why I've had that little bit of a hole there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that repair. On the leggings, so these are the Avery leggings from Helen's Closet. It's my first time no, it's not my first time making leggings. It's my first time making leggings with a gusset. It's my first time wearing leggings with a gusset. And the first time I wore this, I got a hole just near the gusset. Now, I don't fully know, it's kind of above the gusset. I don't fully know if this is because I may have worn this backwards. When I am wearing trousers with a gusset, frankly, I'm not quite sure. I couldn't tell the front and the back which way around this was meant to go. So it might have been that things were pulling where they shouldn't have been. I did both stitch with the sewing machine and the serger. It looks like the rest of the gusset is fine. So hard to show you on black fabric. I think I just need to redo this part, and I will just, again, do an extra reinforcement. I have weaved that tail back in so that it's more secure there, and there is no more hole, no gape, all good. But I am going to reinforce it on the sewing machine, just as a little bit extra precaution. But before I do that, while I've got the serger out, I'm going to go ahead and do the sleeves. Unpicking serger threads that match really well on jersey fabrics is probably one of the most tedious things to do, because it is really difficult to see those threads. They're not well defined. I have managed to unpick just a section, which was all I wanted to do, of the cuffing here. So that way I can restitch that, and then I can restitch the cuff back on. I've done one sleeve, and I decided that I needed a minute before I did the other one, because it is really just not the most fun job. I made myself another cup of tea. This time I've got a peachy chamomile tea, and I do my best to just take out the threads of like the horizontal so that way I can kind of pull everything through. But like I said, it's so difficult when it's a really good thread match to actually see what it is. I'm just gonna take my time, be patient, and enjoy my tea. All right, definitely the hardest part done. So both of those now I've managed to unpick enough of the cuffing that I can just redo that and then the cuff again. This thread tail now I need to put inside some of those stitches, which will make it a lot more secure, and then it shouldn't unravel like it had. And then I'm just gonna flatten that and restitch across. So we're reattached. Nice and secure. Right, back on the sewing machine. I need to change thread, and I need to change to a ballpoint needle. So I did some extra zigzag stitching. It's not really visible, but it's just a little bit of extra security. I did it 3.5 wide by 2 long. But the main thing I think I need to do is to put a label on this so I know where the back is. because I do think that is actually why it tore. Looking at where the back and the front are supposed to be, I think I actually did wear this backwards. And so I think the front crotch section, understandably, could not handle my bum. So I need to put a label in the back so that way I know which way it's supposed to go. So that was definitely a more time-consuming process. So this top, the cuffs have both been fixed. So this is just straight away wearable. Honestly, that's like such an everyday basic I wear all the time. My leggings have been fixed and reinforced where they should be. There is now a tag, so I'm not going to get confused where the front and the back are. This, because I had to do all that unpicking and I did a little bit extra with the label, ended up taking 35 minutes. So a bit longer, but for 2 projects still, I think very worthwhile. And now I've got these 2 garments that I can start wearing again. Keeping on the jersey train, because I've got my ballpoint needle in my sewing machine, I have a couple of ready to wear tops. This one is more just like to wear to bed, to wear at home. This one is a turtleneck that I do tend to wear out more. They're both from the Gap, and I did actually do a repair on these before in a Me Made May. I think it was probably close to 2 years ago at this point, so I think it was May of 2023. I had mentioned that these had really scratchy labels on them, and I could not get the tagging off. So basically this has started to wear off, and it scratches like really terribly. It's very unpleasant to wear. And I did put a piece of jersey interfacing over the top, which has kept pretty well, but this clearly does get stretched quite a lot and it is coming off. So I want to replace that, and then also the one inside my turtleneck, because they're both the same, both from the Gap, both really awful scratchy labels. I tried a whole load of things to try and remove that stuff. It just does not want to come off. But yeah, this one equally, it is starting to peel back, and this part is really scratchy on my neck. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove these and I'm gonna replace them with a piece of jersey fabric that I'm just gonna stitch down over the top. I'll do a little zigzag stitch to keep it in place, like a patch basically. Now I do not have matching fabrics for either of these, and so I decided they're on the inside of my shirt. I'm just gonna do something a little bit fun. This banana fabric, this is left over from some pajamas that I made for my niece. It's a really nice soft art gallery cotton jersey. So I'm going to cut squares and stitch them on. I don't really care if they match. I don't really care how they look on the inside. They will make me smile to see the bananas, but most importantly, they will be wearable again. So I'm using a fabric glue pen. I use this for putting labels in place. I got it from Little Rosy Cheek Sewing Label Company. So I cut it to be the same size so that I know that it's gonna fit. And I'm just gonna use the glue pen. It's like a glue stick. I don't know if it's really different from a glue stick. I would love to hear if people use just a regular old glue stick, because I'm sure this thing costs more. You know, different products will come with different names. And if they're supposedly more bespoke, they can charge more money. Okay, so that is in place to be stitched on. Let me do the other one. Can I just say, as I pushed my top to the back of the table, my seam ripper rolled off the back of the table. And you know, this is why we can't find our seam rippers, guys. They roll. It's not fair. We're already set up against being able to find them. I need to go grab my seam ripper before I continue, because otherwise I'm gonna be really lost looking for it in about an hour. I have done a few tests. I'm gonna go with this. So this is a 5 wide, 2 long, and I feel like there's still a good amount of stretch, and I feel like it's still sitting nice and flat as well. I did not bother to change my top thread. I'm just changing my bobbin thread because the bobbin thread's what's going to be invisible on the outside. The inside, it's just going to be black, which will match enough if anything does peek through. Well, that went terribly. On the inside, it's not super neat. I wouldn't have cared that it's a little bit janky at points if that's how it looked on the outside, because I've got my navy blue stitching on the outside that should blend pretty well. But it's not gone well. I don't quite know what's gone on, but it has eaten up and like torn through. There are now literal holes. I'm gonna call that one a good attempt. Both of these tops I got from the Gap, I wanna say 10 years ago. I mean, I've kept them going. That is no longer wearable. I mean, I could keep it and wear it like under things, but I don't wanna feel uncomfortable if I ever need to like take a layer off. I think this one is just bye-bye. I feel slightly nervous about doing the same to the other top now. It's the same kind of fabric. I mean, probably I would have done better to have a walking foot. I'm really debating, do I try it with a walking foot and maybe a longer stitch length, or do I just do the same fix that I'd done again, where I just put the knit interfacing on the top and just basically top that up as I need to every like year and a half. I mean, this is an old top. It's only gonna last so long. I think I'm gonna try stitching this on. Wish me luck. So the problem is that you can test, you can do your best to test, but you can't test on the actual fabric. So you don't know until you do it. And it looked way better from the other side. I'm gonna get a new needle as well, because this was one that I had previously used and thought it was still okay. I think I need a fresh one. All right, so 20 minutes later, I have fixed one and destroyed one. Not gonna win them all, but I'm definitely happy. These are very comfortable shirts. And this one in particular, I do wear like at nighttime and loungewear, and I wear to bed, and it's a really nice one to have. So I'm really pleased. I feel like that looks totally fine. I don't think anyone's gonna care. I mean, I'm only wearing it at home anyway. And now I have some fun bananas on the inside, which is a nice bonus. So this, sadly, this turtleneck is bye-byes. I'm not gonna try. I've got too many holes in there. Like everywhere where you can see that it's come through is a hole. It's just, it's a write-off. It is not the best fabric as far as like it stretches, but the recovery is terrible. So when I pull the sleeves up, they're just completely baggy. And like I said, this is an old shirt. So it's goodbye for that one, but I've saved one. So that's something, and I'm definitely happy that I tried. So I have two more things that have been on my like to-do pile. One of them I'm gonna leave, and I've been really debating what to do about this dress. So I made this dress, not the fall we just had, but the fall before that. It's the Matilda dress by Megan Nielsen in a really wonderful Merchant & Mills linen fabric. I am so in love with this dress. It is one of my favorite things that I've ever made. I think the fit was fantastic when I made it. I absolutely love all the stripes, how I played around with the stripes. It felt like a real sewing triumph. But unfortunately, my body has changed since I've made this, and I'm no longer fitting into it. It is too tight. I can like physically get it on, but it's incredibly uncomfortable. So I know that something needs to happen, and I was debating whether to just like insert something into the side seams, but because it has a waistband, I'd have to undo the waist section, and I feel like a panel would look really odd and obvious. It might not, because you know, at the side seam it's probably a bit busy. But what I've decided to do with this one is I'm still holding on to it. I haven't done any adjustments yet. I do still have some of this fabric left over, so I've held on to that. I haven't used it for any other projects. But basically, I've been trying to start to get into a little bit more exercise. I think there's a good chance that I may lose a little bit of weight, and this might fit me again. I'm not a big fan of like saving clothes for some kind of like dream body or eventual body, and I'm not somebody who's generally unhappy with where my body is. It's more just I'm so sad that I don't fit into this, and I want to hold off doing anything drastic in case I do find that I'm able to fit into it within the next year. If I'm not fitting into this within the next year, I'm going to go ahead and just insert a section into the side panel. I'm not holding on to it forever, but it's just so pretty. I don't really want to touch it right now. So this is the one object that I'm going to let myself just kind of wait for and see what happens, see if I'm able to wear it again. The last project I have, and I'm honestly shocked that I've gotten through all of these, is kind of a do-over of this shirt. So I made this shirt. This is the Jennifer Lauren handmade Gable top. I made this in a cotton rib knit fabric that I got from the Fabric Godmother. It's quite a thick rib knit fabric, so it's really nice and warm, I will say, and I dyed this with avocado. When I dyed it, the dye was actually quite irregular, so I wasn't really wearing it, but I have been wearing it and washing it, and I feel like the color has evened out quite well, and I think potentially now I can start wearing it out and about. I was just wearing it at home because I felt like it was definitely just not quite good enough to be worn outdoors. I sewed this one completely on the sewing machine with cotton thread, and I did it with cotton thread because I wanted it to take the color of the dye, but it's just come apart in various places. I feel like cotton thread is just not quite as robust as polyester thread, and I generally do prefer to serge my knits. So I've got areas where there's little holes. I've got areas where the threads are just coming off, where it's been stretched. You can see it's like areas where the thread is coming off, where it's been stretched, where it's even torn at points. So I just basically want to completely undo this and re-sew it using the serger. There are some areas that of course I will still have to sew with my sewing machine. I feel like I clearly reinforced this area with the serger, so that I don't need to do. So I think I just need to unpick everything that just has a sewing machine thread and just basically start over, like with new, treat it like pattern pieces. So look, this is under one of the arms. It's terrible. So this is basically just going to be a long unpicking job, and I've got half an hour before I need to make dinner. So I think this one is just going to be a sit and unpick in the evening, and then I've got another day off soon that I'm just going to quickly finish this one up. I feel like I'm so close to finishing these. I really would like to. So I will meet you guys another day to finish off my final repair. But I have to say I'm pretty happy with my progress so far. It is day 2 of my mending extravaganza. So I did end up completely unpicking this top while dinner was simmering. It took about an hour in total, just kind of in between jobs with the dinner. It is definitely one of those things where, as much as it's a pain to unpick serge seams, that's probably the most annoying thing to have to unpick. Zigzag stitches are not a whole lot better, guys. Like, they are seriously annoying. You can't just undo a few of them and then just pull the thread through. It just doesn't work because of the zigzag. So it was fairly painstaking, but I'm glad to have this completely unpicked so that I can sew it up. I need to rethread my serger. I need to rethread my sewing machine, which it's fine. I can handle that pretty happily. I also need to change my needle over because, full disclosure, I had unpicked this the day that I had started, which was 2 days ago now. I've been working for the last couple of days. It's my first day off again, and I did want to do something a little bit different with my morning. I had a bit of time to sew, and I felt like, let's give the mending a breather and do something just a little bit more just regular sewing. But I have to say it's not straight up sewing, because what I was working on was this, which is a calico muslin, just a straight up fit muslin of the Closet Core Blanca flight suit. I do want to make this pattern up. I had made a ton of adjustments to the pattern though. I needed to just make sure that it was going to fit me. There are still a few little tweaks to make, but it's really not far off. But this is very much like quick and dirty muslin style. It's not anything super neat or anything, but it was nice to do something that was just different from the Mending. As much as I'm enjoying like powering through them, sometimes you just need a little bit of breathing space. So I'm going to go ahead, set my machines up, and see how long it takes me to re-sew this top. I honestly don't think the sewing is going to take too long. We'll see. It's been 35 minutes and I have managed to re-sew this up. I have re-hemmed the sleeve with a twin needle. I've done twin needle here along the neckline, which I think looks nice. It is a little bit tight, and that's because I made this when I was a size smaller, but I'm still happy with it. I think it looks nice. I was trying it on mainly to see if I still wanted the same length, because sometimes these days, because I'm wearing some more high-waisted things, it's nice to have some higher tops. But I actually think I like where this one is sitting. It's folding right where I've hemmed it before, so I'm just going to go ahead and stitch that down. I do definitely still see the markings I mentioned. I don't know if it's going to come across on video, but where my avocado dye is a little bit blotchy, I can see it kind of on the bust area. I can see it on the sleeve. So this one, I am at this stage leaning more towards dyeing it, bearing in mind that I've just stitched it with some polyester thread. So I need to consider that. I think I've done a neat job with the stitching, so if it ends up being contrast stitching, I think I'm pretty happy anyway. But I am actually really more excited about this top. It even feels more comfortable now than it did before, so I feel like it's definitely a win either way. So there we are. Re-sewn, completely unpicked and re-sewn top. The hem ended up taking 5 minutes, which included, I ran out of thread, so I lost at thread chicken twice. I was doing twin needle, and I started off with what I thought was a pretty good match for both of my threads. I thought it was looking good. And then I ran out in the one that goes into like the main feeder at the top, and I had to change it for a less good match. So here we've got the better match on top and the more bold choice on the other level. And then my second thread, which is the one I, had a bobbin loaded onto, that one ran out as well. And so then I ended up having a section where they are both quite bold and not the best match, with a very bad little join as well. But you know what? I'm not looking that closely at my hem. I don't think anyone else is looking that closely at my hem. So what I do want to do, like I said, is I will still dye this. I'm leaning, because the threads I've used are like a purpley pink, I'm leaning more towards a purple, maybe like a deep purple. I feel like that would work well in my wardrobe. But overall, I think even if that thread color shows through, I think it could look like a nice detail. And like I said, I think I did a pretty neat job on the necklines and on the hems, which I think is the most important part. So I'm pretty happy if that is visible. I'm going to call this done for now though. I will be doing some dyeing, but that's something that I'll be doing and updating you guys in my February makes. Yeah, we're in February, in my February makes video. And I have one more project that I am shoehorning into this, just honestly for myself, to give me the push to do it. It's not technically mending, but it's definitely breathing new life and refreshing a textile. sort of. So I've been repairing some garments like you guys have seen, and I have a big stack here of beeswax wraps. So these are cotton fabrics, old scraps of cotton fabrics that I have coated with melted beeswax so that I can use them to wrap food, to keep food fresh. And they are in desperate need of a refresh. So I don't know how it's gonna come across on camera, but basically you can see all these little crease lines. It's gone really pale and it's just not holding its shape. So the idea is this would wrap around clothes or food, wrap around a bowl and keep the shape, but it's kind of slowly expanding because the wax is just not there enough. It's kind of worn off. So all I need to do is put these between two pieces of parchment paper with a very low heat of an iron, and they will be completely good and new again. And I've been meaning to do this for about 2 years or so. And I've been using single-use plastic instead, plastic wrap cling film, which is not good. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna refresh these babies, and it will be my final mending, repair, breathing new life into a textile. These are textiles, I think it counts. The small ones are especially fast to do. I'll do this one in real time. You can see when it's all wet, when it's remelted. I will put a link to the video where I showed how to make these beeswax wraps and a bit more talking through how to refresh them, but really it's just what you've seen, and I will only add extra beeswax if I feel like it's looking really particularly dried out and pale. The ones that do need more wax, I'm finding that actually just putting a bit in the middle, just like a little stack of the beeswax beads, works better than trying to cover the edges. And then I'm just gonna hold this on until those start to melt. And I can tell when they're melting because I start to see some of the wax coming out. Like there. You probably can't see, but trust me, I can see. So obviously there's still a little bit. If you can see the beads, you wanna just melt that a bit more. But I feel like you can then use this wax, you can kind of push it. Get all the edges. So that ended up taking 45 minutes to refresh 22 beeswax wraps of all various shapes and sizes. The big boys were definitely the toughest bosses, but overall these are so useful to have. I really do love putting these on halves of like fruit, half of a tomato, half of an avocado. They are the best for that. Really good for wrapping cheeses, sandwiches to bring to work. And because they're now full of lots of nice wax, when I wrap it around something and just use the heat of my hand to melt it, it just stays put really well, maintains the shape, and forms a really good seal. So I'm very happy to have sorted these out. So I have been mentioning the times, but I'm not adding it up in my head. So I'll put up the total time that I spent to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 garments repaired and back in rotation in my wardrobe, and one that I have finally said goodbye to. And then if I add the beeswax wraps, which is a job that I've been putting off for way too long, thinking about how much time it took to do all these things, it clearly was not as intimidating as I thought it was. I hope it has given you guys a little bit of that push, that inspiration to go ahead and do some of the refashions that you've got sitting in your wardrobe. One of the benefits of doing all of these at once is that I'm able to actually spot some common themes, and that can help me to hopefully avoid having these kinds of issues come up again in the future. One is I need to make a point to really weave in my serger thread tails. I'm not good at that. I know I'm not good at that. I always assume that if it has an intersecting seam, that's going to catch it. But I do think actually weaving it in just makes it that little bit more secure, and I'm going to make a point to do that. It takes like 20 seconds to do. I just need to do it. And I clearly need to reinforce my crotch seams. That's one that came up on 2 different garments, so it's clearly something I need to remember to do. So whenever I am stitching together crotch seams, looking at that back crotch curve in particular, I need to do an extra row of stitching in the seam allowance just inside my seam line for a little bit of extra security. I don't need to do that if it's something where I'm like then folding it over and top stitching, like on jeans where you're gonna have like a faux flat felled seams. Feels like a tongue twister. Flat felled seams or faux flat felled seams. I don't need to particularly reinforce those, but anything that's not that kind of seam, I need to make sure I'm doing at least 1 more row of stitching just to keep everything together. I also want to avoid using cotton thread on stretch garments. I think cotton thread is fine on wovens, but with stretch garments that are going to pull a little bit, I feel like they just don't have the strength to have any kind of give, and I feel like they're more likely to snap. I appreciate the benefit of having the thread being more likely to break than the fabric, so that's a bit easier to repair than a hole, but I just feel like polyester thread, if I can get like a recycled polyester, fantastic, then that's going to be my better bet, I think, for anything stretchy. And I think the biggest overarching lesson is honestly just more of a reminder for myself about how little time most of these jobs actually take to do. I'm really glad that I timed them because honestly, I would have thought that some of these would have taken a little bit longer than they did, and that is part of what put me off doing them. I would love to hear if it surprised you guys to see how quickly I was able to work through any of these alterations, these repairs, these mending jobs. Maybe you know how long these things take, and maybe you're not as bad as I am just kind of stacking them up. But I do feel like there are times when I would really wish that I could have been wearing a garment, and I felt like, ugh, but it's going to take so long to do this repair thing, and actually I could have just done it in like 5 minutes or less and gotten that thing back into rotation. I hope you enjoyed hanging out with me while I work on my mending. I think it's an important part of the sewing process. If we want to keep these garments going, we've put all the time and energy into them, we want to give them the longest life that they can have. I would love to hear what you guys have on your mending pile. How many things have you got stacked up? Are there any projects that you're thinking, actually, maybe I need to just go and do that thing because it's probably not going to take as long as I think it's going to take? If you did enjoy the video, as always, I would always appreciate a thumbs up. I would appreciate if you subscribe to this channel if you're not already subscribed, if you want to see upcoming videos, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye!